Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollands High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Alright, good evening. Hopefully everybody has had some time to finish up their vase or vase. I'm still on the fence on which way I want to call this. If yours doesn't quite have this pretty UV layout, quite the same, don't be too concerned. It's always going to be a little bit different depending on how you've modeled it. But what I want to go over today is how to texture map this thing. Right now we're using the base little checkerboard kind of texture to make sure everything lines up correctly. But this isn't what we're going to put in game. This is just to make sure things are going to be kosher. So over here on our UV layout, if you happen to have the picture turned on, there's a little mountain with a picture icon here. Yeah, that thing's atrocious. Let's turn that off, and we'll see our little layout. What we're going to do is we're going to take this over into Photoshop, and then we're going to paint, kind of like back when we were in, was it first grade or kindergarten, they give you a little book that has an outline, you paint within the lines. Well, we're kind of going to do the same thing, except we're going to be painting and keeping within the lines of our UV kind of grid here. So go ahead and go to UV mode, go ahead and select all these guys, and then up here under polygons, we're going to go down to UV snapshot. And what this is going to do is it's going to take a picture of our UVs and put them into an output file, which defaults, if you look under here under Documents, Maya, Projects, under Default Images, and then right here it says Out UV. I'm going to go ahead and change Out UV to change it to Vase UV. Image size. This is going to be the big deciding factor on the quality and depth of the image that you're going to be putting on here. 1024 by 1024 is a decent size if you're doing this with like a game engine. If you wanted higher detail, 2048 or 4096 would be really good to go with. I'm going to just do this as 1024. If you go smaller resolution, it just won't be as sharp. So 1024 is going to go with, just because we're doing web stuff and I have things recording. Keep aspect ratio, have that turned on. Anti-aliasing turned on. Color value, right now it's going to output as white, so you'll see white UVs, but you can change this anything you like. I prefer having white on a black background. And then image format, you have a few options here. The Maya if file is picky. It can't be read by certain things. Of course, you have GIF, JPEG. Never save anything out as JPEG. If you're going to make it for web use, sure, but if you actually want to work with it, don't do JPEG. Go with ping or bitmap or targa. You can even do TIFF. They're not too bad. But I am going to go grab a PNG. And I like PNG because they're nice like a bitmap, but they have transparency, so you can kind of have different layers and levels on them that you can work with. So I'm just going to hit OK. And now that that's done, I'm going to go over into my little images here. And if you get into your documents, it's Maya, Projects, Default, and there's an Images folder right here. If you open that up, and you can see I've had a few different UV layouts before, but I'm going to grab this one. I know it's atrociously white, but it's Vase UV, PNG. I'm going to grab that guy and drag it down into Photoshop and drop it in. Now when it first pops in, it's going to be this horrible, horrible white kind of color because the background, there's no color on the background. Again, we save it as a PNG, so it's just the outline of our UVs. Over under our Layers tab, I'm going to drop in a new layer. And under my layer 1, I'm going to go ahead and drop in black. Make sure you're dropping it in on the new layer, not the old layer. My UV layer, I'm going to go ahead and name UVs. That way I know. And you can go ahead and lock this layer if you like. I hate locking layers, but sure, you're welcome to lock it if you like. That way you can't accidentally mess it up. And then this bottom layer here, this is just for my background so I can clearly see my UVs. You're welcome to lock this as well. I usually don't, but some people can't stand working on it. I'm going to drop in a layer in between these, and this is going to be my color layer. So let's just say color for now. Okay, so this is where we're going to start doing some painting, and we have to keep in mind where everything is. If you've done your layout and you've paid attention, this is the nose of the vase. This is the top of the head of the vase in the back area. This is that side piece along the side of the head. And if I jump into Maya, we can kind of see that. Jump into object mode. Stop it. So like this part right here is this. And then this is this neck piece. Of course, it's looking at it from this way, so this is the neck. So that's this, and this side. The belly coming out are these, and these edges on the very outside are the ones that seam up in the back, right back here. That's how they sew together. And that's one thing you want to keep in mind as you're UVing your model, is where all these things kind of line up and how they work. And then again, this here is our handle, and this is the back side of the handle, and these edges here are the underside of the handle where they sew up together. And then of course right here is there, and this piece is these edges here. Okay, I'm going to jump back in. And to show you how this works, let's see. You guys can really color this any way that you want. I'm going to kind of go through it and try to make this kind of pretty, but I want to keep the video down as far as file size. So, what's a good pottery color? I want to do like a red clay. Let me come in here. I'll push this up to about there. That looks like a reddish clay kind of color. I hit that. And grab a paintbrush, adjust my size. I'm going to use a flat brush. I'm not going to use this soft brush, but that's just a preference. I don't like I don't like using the soft brushes because when I go to select, use the magic wand tool to select, it'll select like clear pixels on the outside, and it won't give me a clean cut. Now I'll show you a demonstration of that right here. You don't have to copy this. I'm just kind of showing you. So if I make this little painted selection here on this, and then I go to Magic Wand Tool, and I do a select, you see how there's this clear outline, like a space between the outer edge and then that. I really hate that. I like to be able to have a precise selection. So I usually will not use a soft brush unless I know for sure I want to blend pixel edges. So if I use a hard brush, and then I go do my magic wand, you can see it grabs right around the pixels, and it's a lot cleaner. So this is the one I usually use. Okay, so grab my brush, and just really quick, I'm going to go over this thing and just kind of paint this in. And you can sort of do this any way you want. Now I know that right here in the center is going to be a hole, and because it's a game model, we don't actually see all the way down inside the hole. So I'm just going to paint around here. And this is what we call texture mapping. We have the UV layout, and now I'm going to be creating a texture that is mapped to this layout. Alright. And then inside the center hole here, this is one of those cases where I would use the soft brush. That way I can kind of clean these edges up because I'm not worried about selecting it. But that's one of those rare cases. Yeah, just kind of going around. Now you could kind of cheat and do a magic wand tool and drop in a color, but I want you to get the hang of painting this stuff. I kind of go around the edges. And it's okay if you go outside the lines. Anything outside of your UV lines will not be registered. Basically, it just kind of gets dropped off, it gets cut off when the UVs read it. So, kind of go around. So unlike in first grade, you can scribble outside the lines. It's not that big of a deal. And this part, just kind of coloring it up, is kind of boring, but then I'm going to add some detail, and you're going to see how that detail matters. Get these. I'm just going to do a quick outline. And you can see why, now that we have this picture and we're painting it, why I chose to scale my UVs in and keep them off the bottom edge. That way I have some room, some padding basically, so that I can color this in. And go da 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 da. Yes, I could increase the size of my brush, but I'm not going to. Sometimes I just like to feel that I'm doing something. Okay. And go ahead and get these outer edges. I kind of missed these. And then right here, and I'm going to avoid touching these together. And the reason for that is if I do anything fancy on these sides, I don't want them to kind of be over here. Because these edges here are the inside seam of the handle, and this edge here is the inside seam, or the sewing seam of this particular, of the back side. So I don't want, like if I were to add shadows here, I don't really want the shadows to be on there. So and remember, detail inside of the artwork or your texture maps is just baked on. It's not really there. It's just color. Okay, so in this case, I will grab my soft brush, as much as I hate using these things. And I will just kind of make it big enough for the opening. Ah, wrong way. For my second brush, let's just make these black. And the reason I'm choosing to use a soft brush here is so that there is a fall off in the color. That way it looks like as it's going into the hole that it's getting darker and darker and darker. And that's just a cheap way of me achieving that effect. Fix this. And whoops. Now when I did that, I made this colorly little rainbow outline right here. And that I'm going to go clean up. Switch my colors. It's not turning out the way that I want it. Let me hit undo. How picky am I going to be today? This is again another instance where I'm using the soft brush. Just kind of going through. Just along this edge here. And all I was doing is getting rid of those rainbow colored pixels. Okay. So what can we do to this to give it some color, some depth? Well, clay isn't exactly smooth. Clay has some roughness to it. So I'm going to give this roughness by adding noise. So filter, blur, sorry. Noise, we'll add noise. I don't know if you can see this. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. It's too close. I'm going to zoom out. You can kind of see the speckling happening here. I'm going to go and raise it 5%. It's probably too much. You can usually figure that it's too much when you can see the colors of the speckles. I'm going to hit 2. And I just want it to where my eyes can catch it so it looks rough, but I don't see the colors of the speckles. And I'm going to say uniform distribution. You could do monochromatic. That would make them black and white, but I want color being in there. So I'm going to uncheck this. And that should be there. And that's just to add some visual appeal. Now let's say we wanted to have some cracks in this thing. Because it's pottery, right? It's not going to be perfect. What if I decided to put a crack maybe along the handle, and then maybe one across the belly on the side. I'm going to go ahead and grab my black brush, and I'm going to add my cracks on a separate layer. So new layer, I'm going to say cracks. And remember, we're in Photoshop, so be comfortable with using layers. Whoops, I hit the print button. No, I don't want to print. Go away. We're in Photoshop, so using your layers to your advantage is a good thing. I'm going to go ahead, right click, I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to go down a little bit further. Okay. And there are some effects that we could use to kind of add some cracks. Like if I went up to filter, filter gallery. Oh, sorry. Make sure my object's selected here. Filter, filter gallery. Like I could do stained glass. This little, was it crapulure? Sorry. Crackalure. Texturize. Mosaic tiles. And mosaic tiles kind of looks kind of cool. It gives it like roughness to it. It looks like a black hole. And you could play with all these. But you can see as you kind of go through, it cheapens the effect because these cracks are artificial. You can adjust your grout lines, make them thicker, darker. But instead, what I'm going to do is I think I will just paint them on by hand. Alright, so let's see, up top, maybe I'll come in, oh, whoops, make sure I'm on the correct layer. I'm painting on I want to be on the cracks layer. Coming in, just kind of trail off. Maybe there's a little one that comes out this way. Remember, a crack should be kind of sharp and jagged, so there's that. And to be kind of quick about it, I'll add like a broken section. And make a little smaller crack. Now, of course, you can make these look better. I'm just doing it really quick just so you can see how this is going to line up. And then I'm going to, of course, save this file, save as. This goes into, I'm going to put this in my game design folder. So I'm going to go to my desktop and then my graphic design folder. 3D animation, game design. I'm not making this for Unreal, so I will just drop this into texture maps. And I'll call this Vase. Naming conventions kind of matter. So if you're working for like a game engine or whatever, and this is a texture map, you'd be like TM underscore whatever the object name is. So I'll do texture map underscore Photoshop file. Sure, I'll go ahead and use that. I will click the eyeball so I can turn off my little grid here, my UVs. And I will save this back out. I'll say Targa. And since this is going to be the color map, I'm going to also say that it is the diffuse channel. So TM underscore Vase, D for diffuse, Targa. And we'll get into what diffuse and normal and specular all are later on. Jump back into Maya. Let's right click on the object here. Make sure that we are in object mode. I will drop in a new Lambert. And this one I'm going to call it TM underscore Vase diffuse. Hit enter, make sure that's that. And let's go ahead and locate this file. So when you go on here, then I'm going to go back to desktop, game design, and texture maps. tm_vase, short. And there we go. There's a quick texture. This is probably too extreme. See how wide that turned out on the top. And then down here, everything that I painted on where it was supposed to. And you can look, you can see the seams are almost non-existent. The way that we textured this thing up. The seams, there's no seams here. There's a little one right there, but I think that's the actual crack that I painted on. Yep. Okay. Now, to make this more detailed, we'll get into how to UV this, or sorry, how to set up a normal map and a specularity at a later time. But this is just really quick how to rough in your basic color and some detail. Before I go, I want to show you another trick you can do for these cracks. So I'm going to jump into Photoshop. And let's say you don't want to paint the cracks on by hand. What I'll do is I'll copy my color map. And then under here, let's go to Filter Gallery. Yep, I will accept this. I'm under texture and stained glass, by the way. I'll hit OK. With this one up here, I'm going to name this stained glass. And I'm going to blend the stained glass. Still multiply. No, that didn't work. How about an overlay? Still kind of bright. Screen's going to be too bright. Darker color. It just doesn't look natural with the darker color. How about darken? Same thing. Multiply. Okay. I don't like any of these, but I will just go with darker color just to show you a point. With this applied, I'm going to go ahead on my stained glass. Down here, I'm going to drop in a, it's called Add Layer Mask. Go ahead and drop that in. I'm going to select the layer mask. Now you can select both of these. So if I click on this, you can see it change. And I select the layer mask, it changes to black and white because your masks are defined by black and white. Your lights and your darks. Filter. I'm going to go down to Render, Clouds. And go back over, make sure that I still have my opacity mask, or my layer mask selected. Image, Adjustments, Levels. And I'm going to play with my levels a little bit. I'm going to bring the darks up. And you can see some of these cracks are fading off. And then bring the lights down so I can darken in the cracks that I want. Sort of play with this, kind of like that. Then I'll hit OK. Now with my layer mask still selected, grab my paintbrush, make sure I have white on my brush selected. And I will... Actually, I'll use a soft brush on this. Bring this up for size. Now, wherever we paint, to kind of show you an example, remember this is black and white, so wherever I paint on here that is black should disappear. Wherever I paint that is white should lighten up. So if I paint white, this makes this crack darker. If I switch to black and I paint, remember I'm on the mask, so if you're getting like something weird, make sure you're clicked on the mask. So I'm going to paint this out. Right here on the eye here, I'm going to paint this out. This one, yeah, it's kind of a little bit like that. And then down here where we can see like some solid triangles and such, I'm just going to kind of paint these. That's not too bad, not too bad. This, that probably won't be bad either. Alright, so here's some quick ones. Let's go ahead and do a resave, and then File, Save As. Grab my Targa, and then tm_vase. If you have any questions about why I choose Targa over any other files, it has to do with working in Unreal 3 for a number of years, and Unreal 3 accepts Targas very well. It's a good layered file format that doesn't have a lot of pixelation distortion like a JPEG, because JPEGs suck. Targas, you can have multiple layers on there. You can save out alpha channels, and just all of your normal maps and everything go really well to them. But it's just a preference. You could also use PNG or bitmap if you liked. But Targa is my go-to for preference. Save, OK. Hit OK. I'm going to jump into Maya one more time. And to update this, if we still have our attributes editor open, I'm just going to kind of click on that and update. And you can see the new cracks added in and sort of how those look as they go across. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this video. If you want to go ahead and improve this anymore, you are more than welcome to work on it, add shadows. You can cut these cracks out, make them deeper into the material. But we will cover doing normal maps and specular maps at a later date. Have a great evening.